Hi, this is Graphically Alex coming at you with all things fat related. If that's something that interests you, please subscribe. I'd love to have you. Today, we are starting our next part of this podcast. Let's go. They were talking about working out. We're going to get into it. I'm just going to jump right in today. Oh, actually, hold on. I just want to say I have this with me because it's spooky season. And I'm going to be more likely to get the witch hat out because it's spooky season. But I was like, oh, like, do I stick to the time or do I like just put it on? And I'm like, no. Or like, do I stick to my principles or do I just put it on because of the season? And I said, no, we're sticking to it. She has to trigger me enough to get me to put it on. So we'll see if she gets there. It's always possible, but let's do this.
Destination where they want you to be at as this like super thin whatever, then it's like, okay, now we'll celebrate you, now you did it. But it's like, no, like now it's like pretty easy now. It's all of the time before that was hard. That was the hardest bit.
So people just tell you like, just get out there and do some exercise. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Let's talk about it. Let's talk
Yeah,
about that.
please.
Because even just going for a walk outside, okay, so it's free, so you don't have to worry about, paying for a gym.
Yeah.
Let's imagine that I'm going to give you 100 pounds of weight, and I'm going to give it to you to carry. Go for a walk.
That's so hard. It's fucking hard.
People just don't get it. It's like, I am carrying extra weight. It is not just like, go.
Yes, but you can't have it both ways. So you have to acknowledge that it is a problem, that it is something that should come off, or you can choose to say that it's amazing. You can't have it both ways. That's what I feel like you're trying to do here. I acknowledge the 100 extra pounds. I do. That's why I say to go easy, go slow. Don't push yourself. Even just barely starting is good. I would say for somebody who has zero exercise experience, who's very, very big, just even doing basic chores around the house is a good place to start. It's a great place to start. I think anything can be an activity. Starting to incorporate daily movement in any way, shape, or form, depending on where you're starting, is important. Even if it is washing the dishes, even if it's standing to wash the dishes. I don't know where you're starting, right? If you're at a place where you can start to walk, then you should start to walk. You should always start where you're at, but only you can determine where that is. Nobody feels the pain that you feel. Nobody knows what's pushing too hard as much as you do. So there were times when I was at my heaviest in 2021, I couldn't really exercise. I couldn't go to the gym. I was so completely out of shape. I had been pretty much completely and utterly sedentary. I used to say catatonic in 2020, during what. I didn't really go out at all, and I didn't move at all. I would take like a little bit of a walk at the grocery store, and that was about it. Other than that, I was sitting on my couch or I was laying in bed. So when I first moved to Alabama in 2021, I was, I was very, very out of shape. Like I could barely handle walking. And so for me, I had to focus on working and putting on my effort towards that. But I couldn't work very much when I first moved here. I was struggling. I could barely work. I was doing like food delivery and I could barely do it for 3 hours a day. It was bad. I was really, really, really struggling physically. But that little bit of stuff, it helped. By the end of 2021, towards October, I started going to the gym. I started I started a different job where I was more active, and I started shifting things a bit. But it took me 6 months of working on my thyroid health before I could do that. So I understand that. I do. But you need to always be working towards something. I'm a person where I would tell somebody who's super morbidly obese to start with food first. Start with food first. Start with just eating nutrition. You're probably malnourished in some way. You're probably not eating a balanced diet whatsoever. So I would focus on really building up all of your nutrient stores. prior to a weight loss effort. I think that would really help, even prior to working out, because you may be able to feel a little bit better just based on that. You know, it might not be as bad as you feel, because sometimes just nutrient issues can cause problems. From there, you just kind of slowly build over time, you know, and it gets easier and you just don't really care as much. But she's saying like, oh, if you're 100 pounds overweight, you just can't walk. That's not true. You can. You know what I'm saying? Like, you can push past, you can work up to things. People don't understand that physical activity, at least in the vast majority of people, it gets easier with time. It's something that's not easy, and then it gets easier. I could barely walk in 2021. Now I'm doing the gym twice a week. I walk many, many hours a day. It's so easy now, you know, because I did all that. I live an active lifestyle. I don't live a sedentary lifestyle. And I don't think I ever will again, to be honest. You know, I've really learned to value movement, and it's such an important part of my life, and I don't even know how I didn't do it before. But I started that really in 2022, and I put on a lot of muscle in 2022. So you can put on a lot of muscle too, and that will help you lose weight in the future as well. So I'm just saying, exercise is great. So I don't know.
Go do it. It is fucking hard. It is heavy.
Yeah.
And
Yes, you can put on muscle easier because it's difficult too, especially if you're still eating a lot and you're having a lot of protein. Then you can put on a lot of muscle when you're really big.
there are people on the street who are going to most probably mock me at some point of this walk. And then
That's not likely true.
I'm
But
going to have
that's a paranoia. That's a paranoia, in my opinion.
my internalized ableism, my internalized fat phobia.
Yeah.
I'm going to hear these words, these horrific memories are going to come into my head. It is going to be a horrible experience for me because I'm
Okay, we're looking at her toxic ritualistic mindsets. Okay, this is what this is. This is a weird thing that she's doing. She's creating an anxiety spell in her mind because she's trying to prevent herself from doing something or making it a struggle. People don't always realize that part of the letter E followed by the letter D, the one where you eat too much, part of that is you don't just do an overly restrictive diet. You have to agonize over it. You have to build it up in your head. You have to say that it's the worst thing ever that I'm doing this, because it's all a part of creating an emotional experience out of something that is not actually emotional whatsoever. When you really get to the bare bones of weight loss, when you really get to the bare bones of diet and exercise, it's honestly boring. It's a very, very boring thing. And if you are struggling with that, with those toxic ritualistic behaviors and mindsets, the best thing you can do is work towards getting your weight loss journey to be as boring as possible. Boringness is a sign of health because it is boring. It is, to its core. So you're weighing the food to count the calories. You're going to the gym and doing the same thing that you do every time you go with the weights a little heavier. It's pretty routine. It's pretty blasé. That's what it should be. You shouldn't be like, oh my gosh, I have to go to the gym, and oh my gosh, and I have to walk, and people are going to say this to me, and oh my gosh, you don't need to catastrophize. Like, that's a part of the disorder, is creating emotion out of nothing. That's basically what she's doing here. Nothing has even happened, and she's already thinking of all the things that could potentially happen if she were to walk. That's a part of that, is you agonize over it. You shouldn't be agonizing over the plan. It shouldn't be that unsustainable. If it is, then again, it's just another part of the cycle that you're on. It's not healthy. So she's exposing herself there for sure.
I'm replaying things of judgment, like you can't even go this far, like you're only going 10 minutes, like you suck, like you can barely walk, you're out of breath, like you're out of shape.
Don't make it agonizing. Don't try to make it super emotional. I always tell people, when it comes to counting calories, when it comes to exercise, like, I'll add the exercise to it too. try to de-emotionalize it, because it's not actually an emotional experience. If somebody's rude to you on the street, sure, call a friend, tell them about it, vent about it. That's it. Then let it go. Because it's not the biggest deal in the sense that it's worth giving up your shot at getting healthier. It just isn't. It's on the list of priorities. It doesn't even come anywhere near close, especially if it's just a random stranger. I've had people say, hey, keep going, fatty, when I was running one time, literally like almost 10 years ago. I remember it, but I remembered how ridiculous it was. And I remember that the person who said it was also fat, which again, I get it. I'm a little bit brat. Like if you step up to me, at least in my mind, I step up right back, because that's just kind of how I am. Like I can be a tough cookie, but that's what I remember. I remember that he was fat too, and he was saying that from his car. And I'm like, yeah, you're fat. Just kidding. That's what I think in my head. That's what I thought in my head. I was like, but you're fat. But it was embarrassing. But do I think about that every time? Maybe occasionally. Like, I think I thought about it one time when I was crossing the street, and I live in, freaking Derry, Alabama. That's what I want to call it. Instead of, if you guys remember the Pennywise movies, instead of Derry, Maine, I live in Derry, Alabama. So there's no sidewalks on the street sometimes, and there's no crosswalks. So when I had to walk somewhere, I had to run across the street. And I did think of it, but it's more humorous to me, actually, than like truly dark, if that makes sense. I still don't feel like I'm a low enough weight to run, and I'm not really like a runner. I don't think I'm ever going to be a runner. But yeah, I mean, I'd have to be in like for me to do like sprinting or something, I'd have to be in pretty peak condition, because it's not the best type of exercise for hypothyroidism. It just isn't. Anything where you're gasping for breath, it's not good to do if you're a hypo girly pop. And I still am, so I'm not going to do that. But a lot of weightlifting and walking is great for hypo people, and it's great for fat people in general and super morbidly obese people to do those things. But just de-emotionalize it.
Stops us from doing what we need to do to keep well, to get some movement in.
On the other hand, if you were a thin person carrying 100 pounds on your back, you know how many people would be like, wow,
people
you're
are like,
amazing.
let's turn it into a TV show.
People would think you're like, how some
They've done that on The Biggest Loser.
people do their workouts with those like body harnesses, right? Like with all those weights. Everyone's like, they're so hardcore.
Yeah.
I'm hardcore every day. Like, give me
What
some
about
of
me?
that.
Like,
I'm wearing it.
I'm hardcore.
It's just natural. Well, I like started this mini series before I got.
Sure, but how much are you doing? Sorry, I know that's gotta be the sassy person in the room. How much are you really doing? That's all I'm gonna say.
My surgery, and I look forward to continuing it, where I'm encouraging people who want to walk upstairs to walk upstairs. And I know this is like so niche, but I'm going to explain it to you. Is that, of course, it goes without saying that we deserve as people and anybody to take an elevator and an escalator if you need to, and it should be accessible to every single person without judgment. Should be at every subway station. I mean, maybe it's not obvious. It's obvious to me, but
No,
really
it
not.
should. Absolutely, it should.
For any person, anybody.
For any reason too.
Yeah.
You have a baby. You have a stroller. There should be an elevator.
There needs to be.
Fucking come on.
Yes.
Like,
So
Yeah, I think I don't know if it's not required, but I used to work at the airport. It was definitely required there. There was. So, especially because I worked with wheelchairs. So, yeah, I took a lot of elevators. I don't disagree with that, I guess. I don't know how relevant it is to the discussion, but I just thought I'd say that.
So I'll just disclaimer, like, I know this to be true, but I also know that there are people like me, and I'll just speak for myself, but I know through the comments that other people feel this way too, that I want to take the stairs at the subway. But I have been harassed so many times for being too slow going up the stairs, for being out of breath, for just existing in my body going up a staircase that I am terrified to do it. And then all of these fat phobes who are saying, like, take the fucking stairs, you don't understand the intricacies of doing that.
Yeah.
You don't understand that, like, I actually am absolutely terrified of doing that, and that it's actually...
Okay, I think that should be a reality check, though, because if going upstairs is such a massive issue, primarily because of your weight, where it's like an entire process where you have to take it really slow, you have to be very deliberate about it, you have to do all these things. If that's the case, it might be a reality check. You can train on stairs where there aren't people around. There are other ways to do it. There are plenty of stairs throughout the world that you could practice on. You could train on them if you wanted to. Personally, I wouldn't do that as a super morbidly obese person, hypo, etc., like with those lists of conditions, because it's really difficult. I don't think people realize, like, we really cannot breathe. Okay, like, I believe she's not being dramatic here. Like, it's very difficult. It can be very difficult to go upstairs. I wouldn't necessarily do that as a training point because, again, anything that's going to make you gasp for breath as either a hypo person and by extension a super morbidly obese person, it isn't a good thing to do. So I wouldn't even suggest for her to go upstairs. I would still have her walk at a level plane, not even uphill. It's too harsh. It's harder on the knees. It's difficult, and I know that it's kind of sad, but it's true. Even to this point, I'm just obese and I still would be reticent to like use a Stairmaster. I'm not ready for that yet. I'm not healthy. Those kind of machines, they're really, really intense. I'm not saying I'd never use them or whatever, but they require a level of health to use them, and I'm still obese. I'm unhealthy still, but not super, super unhealthy. But I'm just saying I wouldn't suggest that for her because she's not exaggerating about how difficult it is to go up the stairs. It is that difficult. Again, it can be hard to breathe even just sitting down at that size. So just think of lifting that weight up the stairs, putting it all on your knees, etc., etc. I don't think somebody should feel ashamed of using the elevator as a fat person. I just don't. Or as a super fat person, especially. But in terms of like, are you walking? Are you lifting weights? Like, are you doing daily activities? Like I said, the first thing I said is do your chores. Do chores in the house. Stand, cook something, do dishes. Those kind of things, they help because it gets you moving. And depending on where you're starting, you have to start very small. And that's fine. You'll get there. You'll get better. And again, I can't tell you where you're starting. I'm just telling you to start as small as you need to. There may be a point where I'm using the Stairmaster, where I'm doing HIIT and, training and these kind of things. It's not going to be today, but I still go to the gym. I do full body. I do what I need to do at the gym. I use all the machines. I have, pretty heavy weights on all of them. I use it more for cardio benefit as I'm trying to burn fat. That's my primary reason for going to the gym, which only makes sense at this point. So that's what I do, and it works. It's helped me lose weight. It's helped me maintain my muscle. That's why you do it, right? But it took me a while to get there, and this is my first year where I'm going to be going 365, where I'm going to go to the gym the whole year. Because most of the time in the winter, I had to stop. And so I do think there's a lot of judgment about it. Don't feel bad about having to pick it up or drop it off. Especially when you're super morbidly obese. Don't feel bad about it. Don't feel that way. You have to kind of work with your body. It's like you're coaching your body out of it. So don't feel like you have to constantly go all the time. That being said, if you're just obese, like I currently am, there's less of an excuse to not go. And you probably should go. And I'm telling myself that now. And I'm a little nervous about it because I haven't done it. But I'm going to this year. You get what I'm saying? So we level up as we go, and that's okay.
Actually safer for me to go take the escalator with like a mass amount of people than to take the stairs and be like pointed out as a fat person going up the stairs. And so I started this series on
I don't think it's just the social aspect though, because people wouldn't care if you were going up the stairs fast enough. And if you can't, then there is a physical aspect to that. I mean, be realistic.
TikTok where I'm like, we're going up the stairs, fatties, like we're fucking doing it. And if it takes me 10 minutes, it's gonna take me 10 minutes, but I deserve to like start going up them. Like I want to take the stairs.
You don't need to block everybody's path though. And again, I'm just being realistic. You have to be considerate of other people too. People are often in a rush. If it takes you 10 minutes to go up the stairs and people have to wait for 10 minutes behind you, that is very inconsiderate. And you're going to hear pushback for it. I'm sorry. Maybe that's harsh, but it is what it is.
I want to and I'm able to right now. And so I do it one step at a time. And I let people walk past me. I have to be in like a really like courageous place to do this.
Yeah.
Sometimes I decide it's not the right day to do it for my psyche. But I get up to the middle and I pause.
Yeah, I think she's deliberately choosing something kind of embarrassing so that it can discourage her from doing other stuff. That's what I think that is. It's like a psychological mind game because it doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense to me. It's giving a little bit of Anna O'Brien, how she does these like really weird, like traumatic things to do at her size so that she can then ruminate about it later. And that's what I think she's doing here. Like she's trying to create these embarrassing experiences for herself so that she can use those memories later within her toxic ritualistic behavior.
Pause. And I am breathing like this. And I let myself breathe it through. And then I go up to the next part, and I record myself breathing and I do it with people and I post it on the internet. And like the amount of people, it makes me feel so like seen. These kind of things, like they make me want to cry. Like it makes me feel so seen that like my very niche experience is something that like the majority of fat people experience too.
I gotta say too.
But it can change. It can change. I don't do it anymore. I don't gasp for breath going upstairs. If I just go up one flight, I'm okay. I used to gasp. I mean, really. It can be killer, I'm telling you.
That this is something we do every day is like walk upstairs, and it's something that I didn't even fully clue into completely, that like the intricacies of how scary it could be for you to take the stairs. Like,
how about how physically unhealthy she is, that it's that difficult for her to go up the stairs due to her weight? Like, can we acknowledge that part of the equation? Like, isn't it interesting how they completely ignore that? Completely. That's wild. Like, it's got to be some kind of mental gymnastics.
seriously, I wouldn't have even thought that people would be so cruel to do. Like, just walk around me. Why are you being a dick?
They're not. They're just
Why are
obsessed
people-
with fat people. All people are obsessed with us, and oftentimes this happens in isolation. So a lot of
Which
these,
is even scarier in a subway station where there's like a lot of also crime happening right
Yeah,
now and
it's
being
really
published.
scary.
Yeah.
but like the thing is that the people in your circles, your social circles, your friends, family, like they don't see it happen. They don't know it happens, and sometimes people don't believe me. Like they think I'm exaggerating or like I'm being sensitive or I'm like assuming that someone's dirty look to me is like not about me. And like sure, maybe that's true, but I've actually had people verbalize this to me all the time.
Yeah.
And my partner was with me a few months ago, and we were in the subway, and this man like really scared the shit out of us, and he was screaming at me like, "You fucking cow!" I don't know if I'm allowed to swear on here, but
Yeah.
he was saying like, he was like, "You fat fuck! Of course you're taking the fucking escalator!" Like yelling at me.
Jeez.
Normally this happens when I'm alone, but it's rarely happens with someone else. And she was so scared naturally, and I was filled with rage because of all this work that I've been doing.
Of course.
And I could feel it like rising up. So I turned around at him and I was like, fuck you! Like I raged out.
Yeah.
And he was like, fuck you! And then I was like, get fucked! And then I turned around and I like go up the stairs at the like extreme pace because I, you know.
Yeah.
And like it's
I
funny,
love the
but
get fucked.
I love the get fucked.
I was so fucking mad because it's just so cruel.
Yeah.
It's extremely cruel.
But you know, when I got home and I had like an hour's worth of an anxiety attack,
Yeah.
I wept. I
Yeah.
was so embarrassed
It's
that my
intense
partner
to
saw
experience
this.
those kinds of emotions.
Fucked too, because like for you, it's a traumatizing experience that obviously you still remember, that you're still gonna talk about, that is gonna affect you every single time that you try to take the stairs, or every single time that you take the escalators. Either way, you can't win.
Can't win. That's the thing. You
Yeah.
can't win.
And then for them, that's just another shitty day's work for them. Like they're probably forgotten.
Do you feel
Done.
like in situations like this, is there anything someone can do as like a bystander?
Yeah, I don't know what it is about stairs, but there's a lot of people that act like to take the stairs is going to cure somebody of obesity, and it just isn't. I think it's kind of overrated, honestly. I don't know why that became like a thing. Like it's giving me 2000s flashbacks. But there was a while where the stairs were like the gospel of like all fat people, basically. Oh my gosh, Haley Kyoko. Anyways, that was funny. There was like a moment in time where the stairs was like, it will solve all your problems if you take the stairs. And it just, I remember even when I was younger and I was still fat, I was like, that doesn't make any sense. Like, why would taking the stairs really change anything? And it didn't. It doesn't. So I don't know if that comes from that, where it's like an over-glorification of the stairs. But I would say that it's a bit ridiculous, obviously. I mean, I think it's, I don't know. I think people need to understand that it's ridiculous. That's kind of ridiculous to me to go to do all that, because it's like, wow. I do think that that is just ridiculous.
Or like in terms of like allyship as
Yeah.
well. Like what can people do to be allies in these situations? Because it's really horrible to hear that like you're going through this alone.
Yeah, well, I mean, when like very obvious violences happen like that,
Yeah.
like someone yells at to it, nobody.
It's not violence. It's just rude behavior. It's abrasive, rude, harsh. It is wrong, but it's not violent. Violent is a different thing. Okay?
He gave a shit.
Yeah.
Like everyone just kept walking. Would be nice if maybe a man
Yeah.
or someone
Yeah.
was like, "Hey, like
Yeah.
leave her alone."
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, that would be nice. You
Yeah.
know. As for like when you're like actively with someone and that's happening, like naturally there's a safety issue. So like you don't maybe you don't want to like go out and fist fight them for me.
Yeah.
Right.
But you know, obviously to
It's the same thing with anybody, though. It's tough.
support and know like that a lot of us have so much shame about being fat that we will like pretend it's all good. It's like, it's all good. It happens all the time. It's not all good. Trust
No.
me, it's most probably not all good. This is why body liberation is so important, because you're understanding that it's not just about like loving your body at every
Yeah.
size. It's like people go through like active like violence all the time.
Yeah.
And like giving your friend the space and the time to like process that
That's not violence.
with you and not just be like, forget that person, he doesn't mean anything. It's like,
Yeah.
are you okay?
Yeah.
And also just in any kind of situation, conjuring up that much emotion to yell it back at someone too is
Yeah.
like, just like in terms of your nervous system is a lot. And it's like,
Yeah.
like you said, like I would go home and
It's a lot for some people. No, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. I'm kidding. It's a lot for some. For others, it's just like breathing. No, I'm just kidding. I'm kidding. I'm not really like that most of the time, but sometimes I can get the road rage real bad. I try not to, though, because I don't want to get physical. I never want to have a physical thing. But I don't mind a little argument. You guys know that. You guys know that about me. But yeah, typically it doesn't happen that much, but I've had road rage moments recently. But I'm a little better now. I'm trying to be better. Anyways, it doesn't take very much for me to conjure it, is what I'm trying to say. If anything, it takes more to like, sometimes it can take more to not, or to like remain calm. But I'm feeling better remaining calm most of the time. And again, not in a demure way, but in a brat way, in like a I don't give a fuck about you kind of way. That's the way that I can do it, but I get it. You know, we're on two sides of this. We're on the different. I can't even talk. We're on the opposite ends of a spectrum here. So I always have to go to that side of it because I'm like, I know I have some, you know, problematic girlies and boilies in my audience too. And for us, it's probably the opposite, where we have to like, we do have to say like, they don't matter, or it ain't shit. Sorry, I'm just gonna say it. Whatever. I don't know why I'm trying to act like I never cuss. I do all the time. Anyways, I really do. But anyways, you know, we have to act like, we do have to say that to ourselves, because for me, it's not going to be like, if somebody was like, are you okay? After something like that happened, it would embarrass me. If anything, it would make me even more angry to be asked that. Like, all I'm going to say, this is my advice, and it depends on person to person. I get it. My advice, Alex's version, is if something like that happens, just let your fat friend vent for a while. Because if something like that happened to me, I'd be like, oh my gosh, what a fucking asshole. And I just want to spout and spout and spout. And as long as I could vent to my friends about it, I would be fine. And then if they were like, yeah, that's so da-da-da, and we just did like a shit talking session for me to like kind of get that out, that would be fine for me. Because again, I never really want things to go physical, because I'm not into that at all. I'm a verbal fighter, very much so, but I don't like physically fighting. So, and you can get in trouble and stuff. You have to be careful with that. So just say, you know, don't get physical. It's never good. But anyways, that's enough of that little moment. But what I will say is, I don't like her advice. I wouldn't want you to be like, are you okay? Are you okay? Like, I don't know. I just don't think that's a universal thing. That's all. That's all I'm trying to say.
And cry and have a panic attack as well.
Let me know what you guys would want somebody to do in that situation. I'm interested in other people's perspectives.
I think like most of us don't yell
Yeah.
back, you know, like most of us are scared and we internalize it and we run away, you know.
Whatever your reaction
Yeah.
is, it's still,
But like in that time I was just like so sick of this
Yeah.
injustice. But I think that's the
I think it's just a guy being an asshole, basically. That's what it sounds like to me. Which again, I'm all for her doing that. I'm just going to say it like I am. I know it's bad in some ways and a lot of people don't like it. But sometimes, like I've said, when you're in this disorder, it's important to feel the emotions. And there have been phases of my journey where I've needed to let it out. Like primarily in 2022, I was so angry in 2022 and I just needed to let it out in order to continue to recover, because I couldn't like bury the anger and continue in my hypothyroid recovery at the same time. I couldn't do both. So I had to just let the anger out. And I took the hit to my reputation. And if you're going to be the big bad bitch, you're going to be the big bad bitch. People are going to think you're kind of trashy. So you have to take the hit to the reputation. But sometimes it's worth it, you know, depending on who you are. Like, I don't know. I wouldn't judge. I don't judge her for doing that. I'll put it to you that way. But I understand why other people do, if that makes sense. I can see both sides. I don't need to do that now. I'm not going to. But, you know, recovery can be messy sometimes. And I'm not going to get on here and be like, oh yeah, throughout my entire recovery, throughout all my weight loss, I've just been super calm, demure, girly pop, and I never got mad. I never yelled at anyone. I never this, I never that. No, I did. I did, but guess what I didn't do? I didn't eat due to anxiety. I never did that. So don't be afraid of your anger. Don't be afraid of your emotions. I think that for me, that was one of my biggest triggers, is I was afraid of my anger. But I'm not anymore. And now it's more so, it's just more in control, I guess, where it's just more normal, which is good. I think that's better. But I don't judge her for doing that. That's all I'm trying to say. Because I think it is messed up. Because I think people, they need to realize, like, when you are that big, you really are not in a good position. It's tough. So people who are super morbidly obese do not need to be harassed. They don't ever do anything that will increase anxiety. Because no matter what, whether it's mental health related or physical health related, you're so easily prone to anxiety when you're super morbidly obese. And a lot of people have that toxic ritualistic behavior, the letter E followed by the letter D. That will lead to an episode. So you're not helping anybody by doing that. You would never be helping her by doing that. You're making her anxious. And that anxiety, that's what she's trying to escape. And so it leads to all these emotions and all these things because it's anxiety inducing. She felt fearful in that moment. That's a scared feeling. That's why it hit her so much, and that's why she remembers it. It's not right to do that to somebody in general, but do not use obesity as an excuse to do that to somebody, because that type of person will be especially vulnerable to anxiety and to fear. Because again, your cortisol, all your hormones, your adrenaline, you're likely running on adrenaline when you're that big anyways. So you're so quick to be terrified no matter what at that size. So don't scare people like that. It's not right. You're not helping anything. And, you know, I understand recovery and all these things, but I tried, whenever I was dealing with my anger, I tried very hard not to like put it all on one person, or, you know, like I just would just yell about stuff and like get angry about my past and stuff like that. Like I would just let it out, you know, but anyways, it's tough. I just think that's horrible. So I don't know. But, you know, there are people in the world that are just, you know, kind of psychopathic, that like to make others feel pain. And that's a horrible thing. And that's a horrible reality of life. And I think that is a messed up situation. So I don't know if somebody would try to do that as an attempt to like, quote unquote, help somebody, but it's not going to be helpful whatsoever. It just isn't.
The biggest thing is, you know, support us like emotionally.
Yeah.
And like voice, like that was not okay. Like that was so violent.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like that really helps to feel.
It's not violent. That's ridiculous. So that's stupid. Do not do that. Do not listen to her. Just let your fat friend express how they feel. If they want to cry, let them cry. If they want to rant, let them rant. That's what I would say. Because most of the time for a fat person, the biggest issue is the feeling that you can't express how you feel. So just let your friend know that they can, or create that type of dynamic. That's it. If something like that happened, I would just listen with no judgment. Don't be like, oh, you shouldn't be upset, or oh, this, or don't do that. Just let them feel how they feel, because that's something that a lot of times fat people feel, that like they feel like they can't feel how they feel. So I don't agree with what she's saying, because you don't know how every fat person would feel in a situation like that. But my best advice would be just let them cry if they're going to cry. Let them rant if they're going to rant. If they just want to move on, then just move on. Because that's really going to be the three responses. It's going to be like, I don't even want to talk about it. Then just respect it. Don't talk about it. Or it's going to be, I want to cry, let them cry, or I want to rant and bitch about him. Then bitch about him. Bitch about him back. You know, you just kind of meet that. But that's normal. That's like empathetic. I don't know. I don't think that that's any kind of like crazy thing. So probably just treat a fat person like a normal person. You know what I'm saying? That would be a good place to start. Jeez.
Seen and supported. A lot of times people are like, oh, you know, he's a loser anyway. It's like,
Yeah.
that's actually invalidating. It's so much more than that. You know,
Yeah.
it's
That's not invalidating. That's stupid.
traumatizing for us. It's
Yeah.
horrible. You
See,
know,
because I personally would love it if somebody said that. But again, you got to know your friend, you know? I'd be like, he is, and he was fat anyways. I'm just kidding. At least in that one case, he was fat anyways. Why does he have anything to say? That would be my response. But again, I mean, we're all different, so I got it. We're not all brat. I get it.
So one thing that really helps as a friend or a loved one, or more than even just learning about fat phobia, is like this. I know this helps people to have different like ability as well, is to offer up different options to your friend, foresee things that could be challenging. So for example, when I'm with a group of friends, they're just gonna take the stairs like
Yeah.
all the time. And I'm like, fuck, shit, I don't want to be like, hey everyone, like, I'm sorry, like, it's really stressful for people to
Yeah.
advocate for yourselves. It's really great to have someone be like, do you want to take the escalator? And then you don't have to be the one to say it. You're like,
And just
yeah.
offer the suggestions.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or like, should we take the stairs? Or like, should we just take let's take the escalator? Like,
Yeah.
because a fat person's probably going to be like, no, it's all good. We can take the stairs. We can take the stairs. Like, I have so many fat friends that we talk about this. And having someone be like, no, really, like, are you sure? Like, I'm cool. I want to take the escalator. And you're like,
Yeah.
okay, yeah, I want to take the escalator too. You know,
Yeah.
like the options, you know,
I don't think that's necessarily bad advice. I think things like that, like what you don't want, like as an actual supportive friend of a very fat person, you don't want them to get spooked into never wanting to go out again. So if you're going out with them and all this stuff, you don't want it to be a traumatizing experience. You know what I'm saying? So I would agree with that. Like, just take the escalator, you know, make sure you're not sitting in a booth that's too small at a restaurant or something like that, right? Those kind of things. I think it does depend on the fat person to advocate, but I understand it would be nice not to have to do it. And you shouldn't have to do it every time. I think it would be nice if, you know your friend, right? And just consider things like that. And that's the same thing with like clothing shopping, like make sure to go to a store where your friend can also get something too. You know what I'm saying? It's just considerations like that. I think that's a perfectly okay ask. I think these things are okay, you know? Anyways.
something that my partner does for me all the time, which I really appreciate. There are a lot of seating areas that are not great for all
Yeah.
people.
Yeah.
Like sometimes booths are like pre-constructed, like you can't
Yeah.
move the seat.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, a lot of fat people can't fit in the booth. Like a lot of fat
Yeah.
people can't fit in certain
true.
seats. So it's nice to not have to like deal with the possible fear of people rejecting you, and having your friend or your family member who you trust to be like, "Hey, we would prefer sitting
Yeah.
like in with these seats, please." And then you're like, "Yes, okay, like I didn't have to do it." Like,
Yeah. Most people but again, I advocated for myself, so I will always argue you should advocate for yourself, especially as honestly, I'm not trying to give people advice on when you're gaining weight, but as you're gaining weight, things may shift. People aren't going to necessarily realize that. You know, I had the opposite happen this year where I was able to sit on a wicker chair. I always bring it up because I avoided wicker chairs for so many years. And this year I was like, at the Cheesecake Factory when I was skinny-licious just to piss off Samira. I sat down on the chair and it was fine. And we sat outside and I was like, you know, is this real? Is this real life? But it was fine. You know what I'm saying? So now I don't think it would matter. Like I'd fit in a booth. I'd be able to sit at those like higher up things. Like I couldn't really sit at those ones where you're up high. It really bothered me when I was really, really big. And then I can sit in a wicker chair. Like, I don't have to consider it anymore. And that's a benefit. But I think sometimes a really good motivation for a fat person to start working on the issue is to go out and have adventures and get confidence in those adventures, and then see these kind of roadblocks and then be like, I don't want to have those roadblocks anymore. So it depends on how you want to work that. I would just say live your life, and if it becomes an issue, then yeah, it's okay for the fat friend to advocate for themselves, and they should, because you remember that. Gosh, what a pain in the ass, you know? Like, I can't even sit on a wicker chair. You know what I'm saying? Those kind of moments, they help. They help provide a reality check, especially for younger people that are fat. So, anyways, that's my little 2 cents.
And you feel like a bit of a burden, no? Like,
Yeah.
And like, because there's so much shame
Don't make
about
them feel like a burden. That's really nasty. But it's okay to like have them speak up about it, in my opinion.
being fat because of our society. It's not like you don't.
But again, you don't want to increase anxiety. So even if the friend, like, let's say you have an introverted friend that's fat, if they advocate for themselves to you, and then they want you to say something to the hostess or whatever, that's fine. Then just say that. But it's just having to vocalize it. It can be enough, you know? You just want things to be like, it's a delicate balance. But in my opinion, it's like the situations that help me the most are things that were challenging but not traumatizing. You know, maybe a little bit out of the comfort zone, but not really badly out of the comfort zone. And certainly any shaming or anything like that, that would not help the situation whatsoever. So I think it's just important to just not be so judgmental in those situations, with especially practical things like that. Like, if they're talking about dieting and stuff and they're talking like some crazy nonsense, I am not saying to go along with that. If they're going on about fat liberation politics, I am not saying to go along with that either. That's just, oh gosh, like, no. And if they're asking you to do something that you really, really don't want to do, then you don't have to do it. You know what I'm saying? It's like, obviously this is all within reason. I'm just kind of offering those little tidbits.
You don't feel like you're allowed to say anything about it.
Yeah.
You know, and like, you don't want to upset your thin friends. You don't want them to like judge you or whatever, but start seeing the world as an experiment. Like, like start seeing the ways that maybe the world's not constructed for fat people. How can I like start seeing the ways that my friends get affected? This is why I like make some fat friends so they can tell you a bit about their experiences. The subway seats are very small.
Yeah.
You know, so you might not even think about it. You might just like grab a seat. But if you're sitting with the ones like with the poles next to it, that's gonna like jam into me big time. And I'm not. I'm like, I would say something at this point, but most people wouldn't. They'd probably just like sit.
Just like be bruised tomorrow.
A lot of fat people sit like this.
Yeah.
Because they don't want to take up too much arm space. Because their
the
arms
smile.
can go on Look, if you start looking for...
Yeah, to me, these are all like arguments for not being as fat anymore. Like, it's better to just be out of that situation. I'm talking about directly to the fat person. As far as like friends and stuff, just don't say anything about it. That would be my advice. If the friend is like, I want to sit there, then let them sit there. If they don't, then don't be like, why don't you want to sit there? Don't be like that. You get what I'm saying? Just keep it cool. Keep it cool.
For this position, you were going to see it everywhere. Fat people sit like this because they don't want to take up too much space.
Yeah.
So say to your friend, hey, relax. Like, let your arm go. I love touching you. Like, let's just, like, let's cuddle up.
Yeah.
That, like, when people say that to me, I'm like, okay, thanks. And there's so much stress in my body.
Yeah.
I get to just
like, I'm
it
finally
go.
relaxed and sitting down. Yeah.
like, it's okay that we're touching.
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah. Well, that depends on how close you are as friends, for sure.
not like disgusting.
Yeah. I would love to chat more about.
Okay. I guess we'll go ahead and we'll stop there. But thank you guys so much for watching. This one was a little different. I actually agreed with some things, which is okay. I still think you should work towards losing the weight, as always. But I will talk to you guys later. Have a good rest of your day, night, whatever. Peace. I'll see you next week. Bye.